Beginning video with an SLR. All right, welcome to Photography After Hours.
Cheers.
Cheers. We are back with another episode of Photography After Hours, and we wanted to let you know about our sponsor, PAC. So PAC does photo walks, meetings, workshops, all kinds of other stuff out there. So check them out on photoadvclub.com. What else do we want to do? We want to introduce everyone. We haven't done this in a while. Yeah. So we want to introduce everyone. So Sprague, welcome.
Hey, good to see you again. You know,
you're back?
Back from my back, yes.
You missed like me trying to get killed with a drone in here and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, I heard it was just absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry I missed it.
It was traumatic. What are you talking about? He was like, zoom, and then like right at my head, and I had a duck, and it hit my picture. It was just, it was a mess.
See? Wow. That'll teach you. Just stick to holding on to the camera. Don't try and fly it.
Mm-hmm. So, Susie, welcome.
Hi there.
How's everything?
Very good. Very good.
Excellent, excellent. And we have our special guest, Robert Turchick, here. How's everything going?
Pretty good.
Excellent.
Enjoying the build.
And you're Nicholas.
And my name is Nicholas.
Mm-hmm. And it's his birthday.
Well, we like to call him Nick. Yeah. Happy birthday to Nick.
Happy birthday.
This will come out like 2 months from now. You all know that, right?
That's all right.
Send
so
gifts.
People think that you're born in November. Yeah. No big deal.
Yeah, Nick is now 90.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about how to do some beginning video features with the DSLR and what you do when you get one. And you're our resident video guy when we have questions. We always come and, you know, kind of pick your brain. And that's when we set this all up. That's, you know, we were the first person we called. We're like, how do we do this? Where do we start? Can we do it with the equipment we have? So what are a couple of different considerations for someone that just gets any DSLR or any camera, I guess, that has a video feature? Where should they start?
Well, the first thing really is to determine, you know, what the capabilities of each camera are, and you know, because each one has specialties. Most of the DSLRs, like the ones that we're shooting with today, they are very, very capable. In fact, they're being used in major motion pictures because of the quality of the images that they produce.
Yeah, I remember in 24 they recorded a bunch of scenes with the 5D Mark IIs, and they were blowing them up because they were so cheap. They were like, yeah, we can buy a ton of these and just put them on the car and blow the car up, and we'll just buy a new DSLR because it's cheap compared to...
Oh, absolutely. $3,000 camera in the movie industry is a joke.
Yeah.
So, and especially, like I said, when it's producing the virtually the same quality image in the long run.
Now they're trying to go with a GoPro. If they can just bump the quality up on that, then they can bump at $500 a pop.
It's close. I actually own one of those, unfortunately. But with the DSLRs, if it's got the video mode, it's going to shoot high def video. You know, it's been that way since the 5D Mark II really kind of set the standard. I entered the video world with traditional video cameras, and then when I saw, hey, the DSLRs are really becoming popular because of the certain look. And that look being able to shoot with a shallow depth of field, that's really kind of what attracted the video community to the DSLRs. And what a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm a video guy first. I decided one day to flip the switch on the back to go to still mode. So that's how I actually got into the photography end of things and met you guys. But as far as the video is concerned, once you've determined that your camera can actually do the video, there's a lot of settings and, you know, just technical tricks that you have to go into and kind of set things up properly to make it work the way that you want. The biggest thing that I've told people is you're not going to go like chase your kids around with one of these. It's not a video camera. They're starting to come out with autofocus capable ones, like the 70D actually, which is there. That will continually track autofocus, which makes it much, much more like a traditional video camera.
So we can actually jump up and down on the couch for that one.
Well, you know, the problem we were having with that one was it was kind of focus breathing when we were doing stuff. So like we had done some tips that will be released one day Eventually. But we did these tips, and it just kept going and trying to like hunt for the focus and stuff. So is that a common problem with some of that stuff?
That is. I mean, these are much more akin to like a manual film camera. Okay. Like in the video world, and I've got to make that distinction. Traditional video cameras for years and years, you can go buy a Sony Handycam and it will autofocus and it will track your face and do all of that stuff, and they're cheap. These are much more like an old 8mm or 16mm camera, shooting film rolls. Reels, where
I'm old enough to remember that.
Yeah. Yep, and I am too, actually. Right. But I actually, they're manual, and they're meant to be handled. Yeah, they're meant to be handled manually.
Yeah, all of this is on manual right now. We have it from manual focus all the way down,
and that includes the handling of the camera. Sticking on a tripod, and if you've got moving subjects, they're moving around. Some of the newer ones will track pretty accurately. Traditionally, they're not meant to do that. They're meant to have somebody manually sitting there adjusting the focus on a person or a moving object.
So when you're tracking somebody, you're pretty much manually focusing and you're just riding the focus ring.
Exactly.
And now, would there be a time when you would use autofocus?
Occasionally, I will use it to set up a focus, but if the camera doesn't track, a moving subject, I've dealt with that, like shooting more commercial stuff where I want the talent to move from point A to point B. That's what focus pullers and there's a whole crew that's involved with that. You set up a remote focus system with a person watching a monitor. So the camera person that's framing the shot has nothing to do with the focus. That's on another person.
And they know where the shot starts and where it stops.
There's distances and calculations.
When you see like us go in focus and like in a movie, and then they go into focus, and it kind of gives you that depth of field look.
It would be challenging to manually stay focused on like your kid at soccer practice in a shallow depth of field and maintain that focus as they ran around randomly around the soccer field.
It's very difficult. It can be done. Yeah. I've tried and had some success with it. And that's something we'll talk about in a little bit, is how to rig a DSLR for better use. Because that gets into, the follow focus systems and eyepieces and, there's a lot of gear that's involved. And that's one of the myths is, hey, I got a still camera. Hey, it does video. Let's go out and shoot video. Well, it's not that simple.
Not straightforward, not straightforward.
But I mean, for example, for wildlife where they're kind of bouncing around a little bit, if you had it on autofocus, and let's say your hand holding it, then if you put it on autofocus, would it reliably track it, or would it still be blipping in and out?
No, it would hunt. Like I said, it's getting better. Some of the newer cameras, I think your GH4 might actually track pretty well.
I played with it at the at a Chicago conference. I was just doing the first videos with it. I had it for a month when B&H sent it to me, and I didn't do video with it. I was just testing stills and quality and the lenses. And then we did a review on it, and then I purchased one myself, and it seems like it does follow the face around stuff, that you can actually have it face follow and everything. So I haven't extensively dove into that. It was kind of set on manual because I just was doing interviews, so I was like, I'm going to go Safeway, and I know that we're both sitting in that same plane. So
just testing it with people walking around, like in this room, things like that. The autofocus was pretty reliable, but I could tell a little bit of a lag as it's looking and verifying that it's still got the same. And especially if the person I was focusing on walked behind someone else, then that kind of would glitch things up. And I can imagine that would be tough in a sports situation for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, like I said, dealing with actors moving around a set, I still shoot with a traditional video camera, although it's a cinema style camera. It has autofocus capabilities, but I can't rely on it because they've taken the technology kind of back to where the DSLRs are. Even the autofocus on the Canons, it's only the center that's registering for anything.
Yeah.
So it's you know, if stuff comes in and out of that center, it's going to go, oh, wait, I got to focus on that. Wait, no, now, you know, and it goes away. I actually had an interesting thing the other night. We were doing an interview in here, and the subject was kind of moving around, and we had framed it up against your door here. And the movement in front of that corrugated steel door threw the autofocus off.
Really?
So I had to go manual on it and just sit there and kind of ride the focus.
So it sees textures and it confuses it.
There's all sorts of stuff. And that's kind of the game is, you know, if you're really serious about shooting a DSLR, you got to get used to manual focus. There's really no other way around it.
So I know, Sprig, you had brought up a good issue about the cards, as far as the speed of the cards, and does that make a difference and everything. So was that one of the concerns you had?
Right, because I know a lot of people have cards that date back, you know, maybe 10 years that they haven't replaced. And I know that, you know, sometimes you can, it's a function of the read-write speed sometimes as to whether it's going to be dropping frames when it records and the like. And so I was just wondering, for someone who's using something like this, what do they really look for as far as specifications on the card?
Well, the easiest way to tell about any camera card combination is to, you know, go on a site that lists accessories for the camera. They're going to tell you what the best cards are. The rule of thumb is most of the cameras will only shoot up to about 24 megabits per second, which is not a high data rate. So you're really safe with even, you know, a mid-level card shooting full high-def video. I mean, it's pretty impressive. When you get into some of the bigger cameras that are shooting like 4K or like the cinema camera that I use, that can shoot up to 50 megabits per second. And then I actually spit it out a different port and can shoot up to 220 megabits per second. I have to use solid state drives for that kind of bit rate, that data rate. The basic DSLRs, you're going to be fine with a mid-level card. They're not terribly expensive. I'm a SanDisk guy.
That's what I get.
You know,
Yeah, I was just noticing the mid-level ones seem like they shoot about 80 to 90 megabytes a second. And then the Pro cards are up at 150. So would you consider the Pro cards to be kind of overkill then? Or
way overkill. 80 to 90, I've shot 4K video with an 80 to 90.
We're shooting video in JPEG, so we're not shooting it in RAW.
Yeah, there is...
The file sizes per frame are smaller.
So
it's able to keep up a little bit better.
Let me bring up one thing, because it's interesting talking to photographers about video, especially on the DSLRs. People forget that DSLR video, and actually all video, even 4K video, is 72 DPI. We're not talking 300 DPI print size images here. 72 DPI, 1920 by 1080.
Well, most people are watching it on a YouTube video about this big or on your phone these days. That's where they're kind of getting all their data from, is a phone, an iPad, or the biggest you'll see is a 27-inch, you know, monitor, like my iMac, and you don't even make it full screen. You're not going to watch a YouTube video generally full screen unless it's a cinema kind of video, you know, in my opinion.
One of our other members that works with one of the news stations said they shoot all of their video in 720, so they're not even shooting, you know.
There's several TV stations that have not gone full 1080, and it's just a money thing, really. It costs more to broadcast higher, you know, bit rates. So, you know, getting back to the basic setups, like I said, your cards, if you go with what the manufacturer recommends, you're going to be safe. And they're not terribly expensive cards these days. Now, the
Costco,
other...
what did we just get the ones at Costco for? They
32.
were 32 gigs, and how much were they?
$28.
Yeah.
$28, and it was the
So less than
SanDisk,
$1
not
a
Pros, it was the SanDisk Gold ones. They were the Extremes. Not Ultra, the Extreme ones.
Extreme.
But not Extreme Pro. They have Extreme and then Extreme Pro. So
Exactly. And you know, like I said, these days you're going to be more than fine with that. Where it gets into issues is if you're shooting higher frame rates or the 4K, then you can run into, you know, card write speed issues. As far as you know, other concerns, the lenses aren't as critical for video as they are for photography. Once again, you're shooting much less DPI, per image. You're shooting a smaller frame in general.
So let's talk about lenses for just a moment in terms of the focal length, because for still photography, depending on what I'm shooting, I opt for extremes. I like very long lenses for wildlife, things like that, or I like very wide lenses for landscapes. And when you're shooting video, tell us a little bit more about how how the length of your lens impacts your video.
Honestly, it's about the same as still photography. There's a couple of techniques that we kind of use occasionally. Lens compression, which is a photography thing that works just as well in video. The most common lenses that I've seen used in video, 24 to 70, 70 to 200. Those are like the big ones.
Those are the workhorses for still photography for the most part too. Yeah.
And occasionally, and we can get into this on when we talk a little bit more about actual techniques and more advanced stuff using DSLRs for video. If you go with the wider lenses, there's reasons to do that. And I like to move cameras, and like I said, we'll get into that in a little bit, but anytime you move a camera, you don't want a long focal length on it, because it's just very difficult to deal with.
You'll make everybody sick. You just go,
Yep.
See, and I guess I would think that, and not doing a lot of video, especially at wide angles, that particularly the widest angles that I have, like a 10 millimeter lens, and then moving the camera, you'll notice the effect of the barrel distortion more pronounced in video than you would in a still, because a still doesn't have comparative information. You're having a frame to frame difference as you pan across something, and you can see it move almost like I guess it would be a less pronounced fisheye effect. We've all seen kind of like the fisheye thing when you move and you see everything kind of go blah,
Well, and when I'm talking about camera movement, and this is something that we'll get into, side to side movement is pretty basic. When I'm talking using a wide angle for camera movement, I'm talking forward and backward. And that the distortion is much less pronounced, but what it does is it gives you the ability to properly frame what you're shooting. Like if I'm following somebody, or they're following me coming at the camera, without a wide angle, you're never going to keep them in the frame. It's very difficult to do that. And when I say wide angle, I do have an 11 to 16. Very rarely would I use it at 11. More often, I'm using it at 16. I have a 14 millimeter cinema lens as well. That's very common. 14, 16-ish, and that gives you. I'll discuss this in a second too, but that gives you enough space for a person to move in or a subject to move around in. The other concern with lenses
falling out of the frame then.
Exactly. The other concern with lenses is your actual sensor size in your camera. DSLRs come in a couple of different flavors: full frame, APS-C, APS-H. There's a few variants. The lens really matters when you're talking differences between the sensor size. I shoot full frame DSLRs, but my cinema camera is actually a 1.5 crop. So it's a Super 35 is the term for it. So you're shooting a 20 millimeter lens, well, it's actually 30.
right.
Which means for me to get really wide, that 11 to 16 is actually a very handy lens because it ends up being about a 24 to 35.
All right, so
have
we're going to
control.
come back next week and finish this up. We're going to talk about audio and how to get your audio down. We're going to talk about some transitions and other different things, techniques. So tune back in next week and check us out once again on photoadvclub.com and put your comments below. If you have comments, questions, we'll be glad to answer them as best we can. If you love the episode, awesome. If you hate it, tell us too. And we'll see you real soon.
Cheers.
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 Keep the beer cold.